You got the call. Welcome to the big leagues, kid. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the call-up presented by Triple Play Fantasy. Another off-season edition of the call-up here and a fun, exciting topic to talk about today. But before we get into the topic, I've got to introduce my co-hosts, Michael Richards and Vinny, a.k.a. Down on the Farm 8. Mike, how are you doing?
It's going good, Mendy. Glad to be here with you guys. It's been a busy couple weeks since our last show. Last week I was in the Tool Shed Prospect Mock hosted by Eric Cross and Chris Clegg, going up against some of the best prospect minds out there. This week, Vinny and I are both in the Prospect 1 ADP mock put on by the Welsh. It's been fun, but the time off has allowed us to dig into today's topic. You know, we didn't really cover a lot of these players during the season. So how's it going, Vinny?
It's going good. This mock is really taking up some time. Getting sniped on some picks, having to think, love the competition. It's always good.
Vinny, what's the hat you got on? I couldn't tell.
This is the Peoria Chiefs. So they are the high A affiliate for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oh, look at that. We're in a high A hat on the call up. That is how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very nice hat. If you have a chance to watch on YouTube, it's something I might have to put in my Amazon wish list here. But let's kick things off with the show tonight. We are talking first-year player draft hitters. So these are guys that were drafted in this past MLB draft, which, spoiler alert, the MLB draft order for this coming draft is actually tonight. So what better time than to talk about the guys that were drafted this past year? And, of course, it's headlined by a couple guys, but there's a few other players that we need to talk about in terms of the hitting side. We will, of course, start off with one of the cover boys on it in Jackson Holiday. Let's start with actually Termarr Johnson. We're going to throw a curveball here. And second base shortstop, Pittsburgh Pirates prospect, 18 years old. And he has only had 40 plate appearances so far, but 7 steals, stand out, 6 RBIs, slashing 275, 396, 450. Only with a 24.5% K rate so far between two different leagues here. Vinny, tell us a little bit about Mr. Johnson and what he could do for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, going into the draft, Termarr was right there with Drew Jones as, best overall talent for this class. But he kind of separated himself. Drew Jones took the upside. Tamar's more of a floor, I think, when it comes to prospect-wise. He has probably, I would say, the best hit tool in this class. The real question with him is if he'll ever, tap into power. A small sample size, so I'm not really too concerned about 0 home runs and 40 plate appearances, especially at low A. Like, he'll eventually find power. He'll find one and put one out of the park. But what's really almost like the caveat to him would be his double plus speed. I think you mix his hit tool and his speed, and you're going to have an exciting second baseman. I think he might eventually become, but right now they have him as a shortstop. But he's going to hit. He doesn't strike out that much, and he's definitely like a franchise player. He is someone you really want leading your team.
And the Pittsburgh Pirates need players that can be that type of player for them down the road, because they are lacking talent, at least at the big league level, but they have a lot of reinforcement coming on the way with him, with Henry Davis and Andy Rodriguez. There's a lot of different guys coming through the system here. But is Termarr Johnson's your favorite out of everybody, Vinny, right now, currently in the minor leagues for them?
Yeah, no, actually he's not. He would be second. I like Andy Rodriguez over him, but they're definitely almost in the same tier.
Okay, that's high praise. But again, Termarr Johnson, somebody that looks like he's a lot of promise for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now we get to the cover boy. I was just a little excited to talk about him. The guy that looks like he's 12 years old, Jackson Holiday of the Baltimore Orioles. He's actually 18 years old. Also split time between two different levels, 57 plate appearances, 238, 439, 333 slash, Did not homer, has 6 RBIs. K rate is what really stands out to me at only 17.5%, while walking in over 26% of his plate appearances. Mike, obviously, he's looking to become one of the cornerstones of this up and coming Baltimore Orioles team that's really been rebuilding well through the draft and could be a couple of years away when he comes up with Adley Rutschman, with Grayson Rodriguez, DL Hall, Gunnar Henderson. This could be a, dare I say it, like another Houston Astros dynamo or dynasty in the making here.
Yeah, the Orioles have actually been really improving their prospect development over the last couple of years. When I first got started with this in 2020, they were one of the middling tier type teams, but they've stepped it up big time. They're definitely in the top 3 now. But Jackson Holiday, let's get into him. My first impression when I looked into him, I should start by saying during the season when this draft actually occurred, I didn't jump into looking at all these players as much as some other people. So I was in the middle of redraft stuff. So I'm kind of taking my first deep dive into a lot of these guys. And my first impression with Jackson Holiday is he's got a plus hit tool with plus raw power, and Fangraphs has him listed for average speed. So my first thought was this is probably like a Marcelo Mayer with a little bit more athleticism. But as I've been digging into more, a lot of these people, these deep dynasty people that are really into these prospects that have looked into these players deeply, they're actually saying that he has plus speed as well. So if that's the case, you're looking at a rare prep player who has plus tools across the board. And the way that he's being drafted in these prospect drafts I'm doing, he's definitely considered the second best player in this class. He's been picked over Elijah Green and Tamar Johnson in every draft I've seen. Sometimes in the first round. So people really have high expectations for him. Now, if he doesn't, basically for me, it's going to come down to what his speed is really like. If it's average, he's going to be a really good player. Like I said, Marcelo Mayer with a bit more speed. But if he's got that plus across the board, I mean, you're looking at a perennial top 10 type of prospect. And like I said, he's already being drafted in that range, in the 10 to 15 range in a lot of drafts by really smart people. So this is definitely someone to target in your drafts.
Now, you may not be able to answer this question, Mike. So if you feel like you're not comfortable answering it, you don't have to. Do you think the Baltimore Orioles made a mistake going Jackson Holiday over Drew Jones at the number 1 spot this past draft?
Personally, I do. Just because I think there's no question about Drew Jones's speed. You could argue Jackson Holiday might have a bit better hit tool at this stage, but overall, I think, I'll get to Drew Jones in a bit, but I think he's a generational type talent, and I would have taken him number 1.
Okay. All right. Then, no slight to Jackson Holiday, who looks like a stud in his own right, but just curious to hear where you guys were in terms of if the Orioles maybe could have drafted a better player there in terms of your guys' eyes here, but both absolute studs. Next guy we'll talk about, Justin Crawford of the Philadelphia Phillies. In 66 plate appearances so far this year, 241, 333, 276 slash. He's got 10 stolen bases over that time. Again, the strikeout rate not too bad at 22.7%, walking a double-digit clip. ISO is only 0.47, so right now power has been non-existent, Vinny. What do we think about Justin Crawford and his potential future? I believe he is the son of Carl Crawford, if I'm not mistaken, too.
Yes, he is Carl Crawford's son. With Justin, though, you're buying into his hit tool and his double plus power. Right now, it's not really showing.
Double plus speed.
Speed, yeah, my bad. Mm-hmm. But no, with Crawford, he has a nice left-handed stroke. He peppers the ball to all fields. And what I really want to see with him is how his body matures going into this next season. Because the frame, there is some room for him to maybe get into 15 homers a year, but everything else I really like about him. He's very good on the bags. He's very smart. His baseball IQ is out of this world. He's on a very good team for developing outfielding prospects of late. I just want to see it all click for him. It's small sample size and A in the complex, but I'm not digging too much into it because I like the talent. I trust the talent.
And again, coming from his father, who was a stud at the big league level, I'm sure growing up around the game, having his father just help teach him stuff. That's stuff that most people just don't get. So having somebody like that kind of help you along the way, show you the ins and outs. If he's struggling with something, he can ask his dad for certain tips. I think that can go a long way as well. I'm excited to see what Justin Crawford can do as he develops here through the minor league system. Next player, Chase DeLauder of the Cleveland Guardians. And he actually is one of the older ones in this group, 21 years of age, selected 16th in this past MLB draft. Got a lot of great tools, including a 60 hit power, and also got a 55 hit tool and 55 speed here, Vinny. Or I'm sorry, Mike. So, I mean, I feel like Cleveland Guardians are just money. When whoever they take, I'm expecting big things of. So why should that be the case again for Chase DeLauder?
Yeah, DeLauder, I know he was a standout in college. He played at James Madison, so kind of got that small school thing going for him. He fell in the draft to number 16 of the Guardians. And as you said, they've been really good at making quality picks in the first round of drafts and even later. So when I started digging into the college crop, this is the most well-rounded player in the whole class as far as college players goes. And I don't think he's being drafted as the top college player necessarily. But me personally, outside of these top prep guys who have really high upside, this would probably be my main target because of the 6'4", 235 pounds, 55 hit, 55 speed, 60 power. There's really no one that's from the college ranks that has that combination of things going for him. He hasn't played yet, and so it's hard to find obviously any stats, or those scouting grades could be off. Like if he actually has an average hit tool or average speed or, above average power, that would kind of change my perspective on him. But from what I can gather, this would be the guy that I would be targeting if I'm not able to get those prep guys. And I haven't seen enough first year player drafts unfold yet, but I have to assume he's going after some players, like other players that we'll talk about, like Brooks Lee and other more well-known guys, Jacob Berry, players who were drafted higher in the MLB draft, people who aren't looking deeply into this. And we see every year, it changes. The guys who we value coming out of the draft, it changes a year later once we see the professional data. So this is a guy I would invest in right now, especially with the price tag. I mean, he's got top 100 prospect tools and he's not being valued that way yet.
Just curious if either you have the ADP up. Was he taken in either of your prospect drafts that you guys have? And then if so, whether it's the shout out to our buddies at Fantrax Toolshed, Clegg and Cross, or at over at Prospect One with the Welsh, where was he taken in those drafts?
He hasn't gone yet. We're not deep enough in the Welsh's draft, but he was taken in the top 100. I don't have the exact number, but around 90 overall by Jeff Pontus or Jeff Ponce. I forgot. I don't know how to say his name, but Prospect Jesus, he knows his stuff. So, and they were talking in the chat about how, there's multiple people in the tool shed thing that were high on him. So I see some hype coming for this guy, and I see him moving up ranks even for a college player.
Man, all right. I'm getting excited for Chase DeLauder, see what he can do. With that many people already on him. Sounds like if you guys are listening and this is the first time you're hearing his name and you're doing a first-year player draft this year, make sure to keep an eye on someone like him as you get into the later part of the top 100. Next player, Zach Nato of the Los Angeles Angels, a shortstop. He's also 21 years of age and actually got up to as much as high as AA. 167 plate appearances, a 299, 377, 476 slash, 5 homers, 27 RBIs, and 5 stolen bases, 19.8% K rate, a 180 ISO. Now, let me ask you here, Vinny. Is it because the Angels need players that can play so bad? Is it because Zach Nato is incredibly good? Is it a mix of both for why he's already up in AA compared to where everybody else is here?
I think it's a mix of both, but it's more on the side of he's such an advanced hitter that's why they sent him straight to AA. Like, he only spent 7 games in high A. He didn't do that good, but he showed enough bat to ball contact that they had to get him out of there. And when he did start playing in AA, he was phenomenal. Like, I watched him a couple times, and he has that kind of swagger about him where you can tell that he's like the big star on the field. He'll make dazzling plays. The ball just jumps off of his bat different. Like, this is a very good pick for the Angels. And looking forward, I think this might be the start of the change of the organization when it comes to prospect wise. If I were to comp him like fantasy wise, I think he's the next coming of Dansby Swanson with maybe a little bit more better contact. But he is my favorite guy from this class, especially in this range. The strikeouts, I'm really not too concerned with. He just got thrown into AA. That'll even itself out next year if he stays at AA, or he may even get promoted to AAA. But there is a lot to like with Zach Neto.
I think every Angels fan listening just smiled when you said this is the start of changing up the guard with how the Angels have had with their prospect system. Let's be honest, just in their farm system, they have not developed guys. It's been bare as like a cupboard with nothing in it. It's just been absolutely dreadful. And if that's the type of promise this guy has, that he's kind of the start of a changing up the guard there, I think that's very exciting for the Angels. And the skills do seem like they're there. And Dansby Swanson cop has to leave Angels fans very excited. So I will definitely be someone I will be watching and seeing what he can do. Do you believe there's an outside chance, Vinny, that he could come up in September, or do you think he's 2024?
I don't know.
If you had to say today.
It's very close. I think we could see him begin next year at AAA, and if that's the case, we could see him by September. But I am all in on him. Like, I would say I have him over the Logan Ohope for their top prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've seen so much from Neto, and they played together in AA. So I saw both of them. I liked Neto miles more than I liked Ohope.
Is it Ohope, Ohope, or Ohop?
I think it's
I've heard three different ways.
Yeah,
I've heard Ohope.
Yeah, we'll figure it out one of these days. But
it's the Luis Robert or Robert of catchers.
Yeah.
Let's get to the other big dog, or one of the other big dogs here that everybody knows about. Drew Jones, son of Andrew Jones, 18 years old, just a phenomenal prospect. Somebody that looks like he could change the face of what the Arizona Diamondbacks have been over the last couple seasons. And goodness gracious, the talent coming through that system between Alek Thomas, between Corbin Carroll, between Drew Jones, between Jordan Lawler, between obviously Brandon Pfaadt, between so many guys, Dre Jameson. It is just unbelievable, the guys that are going to be coming up through this Diamondback system, and them kind of being the National League version of what the Orioles are kind of developing there, it seems like. Mike, let's talk about Drew Jones specifically, though. Is there a weakness in his game that you found, and what's his ceiling, do you think?
Yeah, Drew Jones, I mean, I'll start by saying this, after looking through the whole class, this is the clear number one pick for me. He's got an ideal projectable frame. If there was a weakness, I'd say that some people would probably grade his hit tool as above average instead of plus, but many people believe he'll get to a plus hit tool. And, you know, you're looking at a plus hit tool, plus power with double plus speed. That's fantasy gold right there. I think he's following in the same track as Corbin Carroll and Jordan Lawler. And actually, I think he has even more upside than them, which is crazy to say, especially coming out of high school. But this guy's a special talent. You know, there's still a long way to go, but I haven't been this high on an 18-year-old high school kid in at least 5 years. So the potential here is it all tied to the development of his hit tool, where it ultimately falls. If he ends up being a guy who's hits for a high average, you're looking at a 5-category guy who's going to be the number one overall prospect down the line and probably a first-round pick in redraft leagues. And if it all comes together, if he reaches his ceiling, we could be looking at the number one pick in redraft leagues in his prime. So I'm very high. I'm very high on him. There's very few teenagers that I am so enamored with that I would spend a first round pick on in a league like this, because it involves waiting a few years. But this is one of those special talents that I would wait on.
Wow. Drew Jones just appears to be an absolute stud. Him and Corbin Carroll and Alek Thomas in the outfield for years to come sounds pretty good. So I look forward to seeing him hopefully get a lot more exposure as he makes his way up through the minors. Sure, we'll see a lot of highlights on him in the coming years ahead here. Next player, a little bit more unfamiliar, Cam Collier, third baseman in the Cincinnati Reds organization, 18 years of age. In 27 plate appearances, hit nearly 400, a 370 batting average, 514 OBP, 630 slug, 2 home runs over that time, 17% K rate, 20% walk rate, 259 ISO here, Vinny. Cam Collier plays at a position, I feel like the infield between, especially specifically second, shortstop, and third base. I feel like the Reds have so many players in their minor leagues but he seems like he fits right into one of the studs of that organization.
Yeah, Collier coming out of the draft this year was one of the hottest upside names that could potentially go first to the Orioles. He was 17 years old playing at junior college, and he was doing work. Like right now, as he sits, he has at least a double plus hit tool and at least double plus power. It's all about how his body just develops, similar to Justin Crawford. If he fills out healthily, like very healthy and lean, I think he could potentially be one of those 30 home run monsters that we really like. We don't really see that often, but the Reds organization is kind of a toss up because, it hasn't been since recent. We've really been seeing studs start to come out of their farm system, but what he showed in the complex league this year has me very excited. He's probably going to stay at third base. He's more athletic than he looks. He really, his very good eye. He has a very good eye at the plate, very good discipline. He walks. He just won't steal. There's maybe upside of 3 or 4 steals a year. But if we're talking about a 3-category offensive slugger with some bad upside, I like Cam Collier going forward. That's my guy.
That's your guy. Again, it'll be fun to watch him along with all those great Red prospects that they have going through here. And seems like he has a lot of great tools in his game. So we'll keep an eye on Cam Collier. Next player, Gavin Cross of the Royals, 21 years of age, has a little bit more to him in terms of actual getting some plate appearances, 135 with a 312, 437, 633 slash, 8 homers, 25 RBIs, 4 steals. Seems like he has a little bit more data to draw from here, Mike. And I love I don't know if they're called the Baby Royals. It feels like they're the Baby Royals right now with the major league team they have out there. Feels like he could fit right in.
Yeah, absolutely. After looking at Gavin Cross and the Royals organization as a whole, I think you can make a strong case he's their top prospect right now. And based on where he's going in drafts, it's well outside the top 100 in all the ones I've seen. So I think he's undervalued overall in first-year player drafts and overall prospects. You can make a strong case he's been the most productive bat from the class so far. He didn't make it up to Double-A like Neto and Brooks Lee, but his actual production in college and in the 135 plate appearances is quite good. The power is legit. He's going to have plus power. I think his hit tool is probably above average. So that's a good foundation, above average with plus power. I think his speed's probably average. So I don't think it's a huge upside guy, but I think he's got a really strong bat. His statistical track record as an amateur is very impressive. So even if the scouting grades don't jump off the page, there's still a lot to like here. And the Royals, like you said, they've had issues developing pitchers, but their recent track record with bats has been impressive. And if they're able to just get the most out of this guy, I just think he's another solid player that's going to be added to the mix in a couple years with Pasquantino and their other young core. So if you miss out on those prep guys, Gavin Cross to me is about as safe as a pick as you can get in the first round, I think.
And he plays outfield too, which it seems like that's where there's a lot more questions. Bobby Witt Jr. playing shortstop / third base, and then Vinny Pasquantino playing first base. And just, Kyle Isbell, the kind of jury's out if he's somebody that's going to be a regular or not. But I feel like if there's an area in the lineup, obviously with MJ Melendez at catcher, and then maybe playing like a corner outfield or whatever it is, I feel like this is a spot where there's less resistance, Mike, no?
Agreed. Yeah, I mean I think the Royals are really high on him, and like you just said, they're kind of stacked in the infield with young talent at this point. And I think when Cross is ready, he's got more upside or more. He's a better, more quality player than like a Kyle Isbell. So I do see him being a starter for them when they're a good team down the road.
I can't wait to see that. Even as a Twins fan, I love watching these young Royals play. He'll fit right in. Another big name prospect, top 5 pick from this past draft, Elijah Green of the Washington Nationals, was the top prospect in the organization until the San Diego Padres trade. 18 years of age, but so many great tools. Strikeout rate is a little bit high, but I think the potential on this kid, if the Nationals don't ruin him, is enormous. We were talking pre-show about how the Nationals have been horrible at development, but sometimes you get the prospects that just can rise above what they're doing at the minor leagues in terms of how they're being developed. I got to ask you here, Vinny, is Elijah Green someone that you feel like in your gut could be so good that the Nationals can't ruin him?
Well, hold on, we mixed that up. We got the graphics wrong. I'm going to talk about Elijah Green.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mike.
So,
You take Elijah
okay,
Green.
Elijah Green. So the big four for the preps, we got Drew Jones, Jackson Holiday, Tamar Johnson, and Elijah Green.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Elijah Green going fourth in most of the drafts of those players, but this guy has massive power speed. And basically, his scouting grades are a below average hit tool with 80 grade raw power and double plus speed. So if the hit tool improves, he's got enormous upside. He's basically big, athletic. He's got all the things. He looks the part. It's just, can he get that strikeout percentage down? He basically profiles to me similar to like an Ellie De La Cruz. If he can get the strikeout rate even down to like 30%, I still think he's going to be one of those guys that has big numbers and like a high WRC plus. But if he's able to like actually show like legitimate improvements like a James Wood, then it's like a toss up, for him being up in the mix with Drew Jones. So I'm not as high on him because of the hit tool, but if you're looking for power, speed, and just pure upside, it doesn't get much more than this guy down the road.
Are you worried at all, Mike? Like we said, we talked about that the Nationals just haven't had success developing prospects recently, that he's in an organization that seems like it could hamper him rather than help him blossom in terms of his future outlook.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal when you have a prospect with huge upside like this in an organization that you're a little questionable on. But like you said, I think the talent here, if he's not completely lost with his hit tool, is just going to be so good that it doesn't matter what team he's on. Maybe the Nationals won't get him to his full peak down the road, but just the pure fantasy potential here is just mouth-watering if he can just show that he's not completely overmatched basically with the bat.
That's fair. Looking forward. Elijah Green is somebody, looks the part, and seems like he's one of those really exciting players that's going to be just a highlight waiting to happen when you watch him play. The last player on the list of 10 we'll talk about before we get to the best of the rest, Brooks Lee of the Minnesota Twins, shortstop, 21 years of age, 139 plate appearances so far, 303, 388, 451 slash. Finished the year in AA, 4 home runs, 14.4% K rate to 11.5% walk rate here, Vinny. And it's interesting with Brooks Lee because I feel like to a lot of the people that aren't deep into the prospects, he's kind of a little bit more under the radar, but he seems like he could be the real deal.
I don't know.
Not.
See, Brooks Lee is probably out of all the list right here of these guys. This is the one I don't like. Like I like the least.
What if he watches the show?
I think it's just if we're talking redraft and fantasy wise, I just think he's going way too high for what his future value is. I think he's just more of a floor player. Like he has an above average hit tool. I don't know if he has an above average power. He has average speed. But when you put those all together, it's just a floor play. Like he's going to be a solid everyday second baseman that's going to produce, but he's not going to be flashy with it. He got drafted this year, played in the complex for a little bit, then went to high A. He was very good there. And then they really were pushing it and they sent him to AA for 2 whole games. But with that little sample size, it's just I didn't see enough to get super excited about him. But there is some things to like. Like you don't really see a second baseman who will probably hit over 300 and probably knock in maybe 40, 50 RBIs. If I were to comp him, he's kind of like a Nico Horner light.
Ooh, that's not a good. Jeez, that's the potential, man. I don't know if I like that.
Less speed.
Yeah, with maybe plus speed down the road, but I just don't see the hype of a top 5 first-year player draft pick with him.
Interesting. Maybe there'll be a better path for that player to fit on the Twins if they trade Luis Ariz, which was floated in rumors the other day. Sounds like he could step in and be that type of player, just like you said, like a Nico Horner type of guy that could. Sounds like a top of the order bat is the way that he's destined to be at the big leagues, but nothing flashy.
Yeah, pretty much. And if it comes down to Luis Ariz or Brooks Lee, I would keep Luis Ariz.
All right. Then let's move on to our best of the rest, more bats to know. If you're not watching on YouTube, Michael's going to go through some of the names on here, and guys, you should just take mental notes of. So go ahead, Mike, list off in Star Wars. It seems almost like Star Wars fashion, like they're going to scroll up the screen here. Why don't you give us some of these names?
Yeah, obviously we'd like to be able to talk in depth about all these guys, but we only have so much time. So I'll just quickly go through for the people who can't read it. Spencer Jones for the Yankees. Chris Clegg took him in the top 100 of the Tool Shed draft. He's got 80 grade power, and he had an under 20% K rate. So there's a lot of intrigue there if his hit tool is actually better than advertised. Drew Gilbert, he has a plus hit tool with plus speed, below average power. So, but if you're into the hit tool and speed, he got drafted by Houston. So if they could develop some of that power, that's going to be intriguing. Jet Williams was someone that stood out to me. He's really small, like 5'8", but he's got a plus hit tool with double plus speed. And I'm really intrigued by him. I think he's an impressive player for, kind of one of those players who plays with his hair caught on fire. And, he's going to be a popular player. Dylan Beavers has double plus power with an above average speed. So it's a hit tool concerns with him, but he's got some fantasy appeal. Parada is a catcher with an above average hit tool and plus power. Jacob Berry, I'm less in on him than most people. He's probably got an above average hit tool and power, no defensive abilities. I think the Marlins made a mistake drafting him. I would avoid him if he's going early. And there's a couple more guys on there. I'll let Vinny add in anything he wants to throw in, maybe like Cole Young.
Yeah, Cole Young, the hit tool on him for a prep hitter to just come out of the draft and just destroy low A like he did this year was absurd. If I were to give a little hype, I would say he has the tools to potentially be next year's Jackson Merrill. If you know, Jackson Merrill is the Padres shortstop that blew up this year. But yes, he is a guy that I really like. Jace Jung, I'm not as big as other people are on him, but he does have an above average hit tool with some power, no speed, but he is limited to second base. Dalton Rushing really blew up this year coming out of the draft too. He jumped 2 levels, went straight to low A2 and just absolutely destroyed it. He has above average hit tool. He might even have above average power, but we'll see how he keeps on going. Fabian was the big draft name last year who, didn't sign. So he came back into this draft, fell to the second round, but he's another big power speed combo that maybe the Orioles could develop. They're very good at developing outfielders in recent years. And then Sterling Thompson is an above average hit tooled outfielder with big power who will be playing at Coors Field and a nice left-handed stroke that's just going to absolutely kills balls in Coors Field.
All right. Well, that's a great list of guys to add on to the ones you already heard. If you guys are learning something from the hard work and tons of research these two are putting in, please make sure you guys let them know. DM them on Twitter. Mike is at MPRichards1981 and Vinny is at Down on the Farm 8. You guys can leave a comment on the YouTube video, and one of us will make sure we answer them if you have any questions about specific prospects or ones that we talked about on the show. And again, make sure you guys are just keeping up with your prospect stuff. Obviously, if you guys are watching this, it means you are prospect heads, and that's a good thing. So please make sure you guys are staying up to date with all the news. Make sure you are, again, following these two awesome, knowledgeable gentlemen, and make sure you guys stay tuned every single week for when we drop another call-up episode. But for Vinny, for Mike, I'm David. That's it for this week of the call up. We'll catch you guys in the next one.